So welcome back to what will probably be the final live stream here in this Alendar Digital Painting series. I am Jason, the creator of the Caledasia universe and the creator of the Legends of Caledasia Space Combat Miniatures game. And as you just saw in the intro video there, Caledasia Fleet Commander, the tabletop game of Planetary Siege. So what I have been doing for, I think this is the 7th episode in this series, is that I have been painting up a character named Alendar from an upcoming short story set in the Caledasia universe. Alendar is a Krylon, and he is on the planet Kalin 5, and Kalin 5 is a frozen, airless ice world. And for this final stream here, I'm going to be working on the terrain behind him. And also, I might play with some lighting effects to get more of a night effect going on here, but that's at the end if I still have time. I'm probably going to run until around 7 o'clock, maybe a little bit after, at 7 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time. And of course, if you're watching this now, that means you're not out Christmas shopping on the last day here before technically of Christmas season, or Christmas shopping season, and that's a really good thing. I almost got ran over on 2 separate occasions today trying to buy stuff at a mall and a grocery store, and I'm still not done yet. Ugh. So anyway, let's go ahead and start with the stream here. Now, like I said, this is taking place in planet Kalin 5, which is an airless vacuum world. Now that makes terrain drawing a bit interesting. It's a little bit different than you normally were to draw terrain here on the Earth, because one, the biggest thing that's missing is going to be that kind of fading effect you get as the objects get further away from where you are. Now the reason why when you look off in the distance things get kind of bluish gray, it's because the particles of the atmosphere start interfering, and that kind of starts reducing the contrast of the objects far away to eventually they blend into the sky. Since there's no air, that obviously can't happen. So even objects way in the far distance are still really bright and crisp. In addition, atmospheres also deflect light. They scatter light. That's why the atmosphere is blue. It's called Rayleigh scattering. I think I'm pronouncing that right. But basically, as the light from the sun enters the Earth's atmosphere, it gets bent off and scatters and has different effects. One of the things it does is also softens shadows. So you don't actually see a lot of soft shadows and pictures of worlds without atmospheres. In particular, last time, let me bring it up here again, I pulled a picture from the moon landing that I'm using as basically a reference, because there aren't a lot of pictures. Obviously, there's a lot of the Earth terrain pictures and artwork won't work for this, for an airless planet, but photos from the moon landing will. But anyway, let me dive back into what I've been to the artwork here. What I finished up with last time was I just put down some very basic base colors of the ice terrain, and I can bring this up here, I kind of laid out an approximate sketch where I want things to be. And the first thing I'm going to do is do something what I've done in the past here with the vest and his helmet, and that's to create a face mask, a face color mask that identifies the different surfaces. So when I start applying texture and color and light, I know what surface I'm going to be working with. So let's create a new layer, and with the way I'm capturing things, when I create up a little pop-up dialog or when I do a drop-down menu, unfortunately you can't see that on the stream, but I'll describe what I'm doing, so if you want to follow along, it should be pretty easy when you hit the dialog comes up. So I got the new layer dialog up. All I'm going to do is call it a name. Let's call it the terrain face mask. And now I'm literally going to take some bright colors and paint them where I think things ought to be. So I'm going to bring my sketch back up to get an idea of what I was thinking. And I'm going to start with the furthest away faces and then work towards the closest. And I'm literally going to pick just a bright color, because this is literally just identifying what region is what. And you don't even have to perfectly match the terrain behind you, because I'm probably going to be doing a lot of work using the lock transparency, so I won't even be able to add additional pixels to this base color layer when I start throwing down some texture on it. Alright, so there's our mask. It's going to be the farthest away mountain. I am going to pick a bright green color to represent where the closer mountain is. They're closer ridge line. They aren't really even mountains. You read the story, they're not very big. It's more or less a flat planet. It's not even. Is it even? I don't know. I never actually addressed the issue of whether it's geologically active in the story, so I don't know. Now the front ridges here do need to actually match what you want the final shape of that ridge line to be. And let's pull out a red color for this closest one. And we'll make the red color also kind of represent the flat ground area too. So we'll just kind of drag it along over here and fill it in. Kind of go around what I'm going to be calling the frozen pond, which doesn't really make any sense, but it's just a different color of ice, and it's going to be dropped down a little bit from the rest of the level ground. All right. There we go. Oh, wait, I missed a whole spot over to the side here. Whoops. So let's fill that in. And we'll go back and choose this blue color and kind of just have that run along here. Where's that? I don't know what that's from, but there's a little spot in the picture. I don't know what it is. Whatever, details. Okay, so we've got our ridge lines pretty well defined here with the red, green, and blue. Now I'm going to start applying some textures to the base color behind it, and I'm going to be using the textures to kind of define the slope and shape of the terrain. So let's start with the furthest away area. So on my terrain face mask here, I am going to use the color select tool, which is the little finger pointing at the red, green, and blue squares up here. I'm just going to click on the blue section, and I'm going to go select grow by 1 pixel. And that's going to basically select the color, the blue face in the back, and it's also going to kind of select a little bit of fuzzy boundary that may occur between the different sections. All right, hide the terrain face mask. We can hide our sketch layer, don't need that. Now let's go back down to the base color / ice color, and I'm going to lock transparency, which is above all the layers below the opacity selector over here, and that's going to prevent me from changing the transparency level of any given pixel on this level, or in this layer. In particular, basically, it's not going to let me add additional pixels to the layer, and if there are pixels that were like 50% translucent, I basically wouldn't affect that. It's a great way to change the color of a layer without adding additional pixels or expanding where your drawing already is. Let's select what was the base color there, and I'm going to just kind of choose some other colors around what the base color layer was, so a lot of shades of blue, different types. I'm going to be using the airbrush tool, which is a great way to apply softer color adjustments and things. And probably I'm going to play with, I like the acrylic brushes, they're a lot of fun. So I'm going to be using acrylic 4 first. And all I'm going to be doing is kind of drawing the texture out approximately in the shape of the slopes of the terrain. Now there's going to be some lights and shadows that are going to define more of the overall shape of the terrain, but right now we're just kind of using this to approximately define the slope. And as with all kind of texturing, you're really looking more for subtle changes. Nothing huge, just some kind of subtle changes right now. And once you've worked with one color, you can go ahead and try a different color and mix things up a little bit. Maybe try different brush sizes. Maybe even get a little bit crazy, add some greens in there. Because different chemicals that get trapped in ice can give different color appearances. It's really up to you what you might want to do. I don't know. I'm kind of making this stuff up as I go. But yeah, you know, different. If you look at some planets like Europa, that's a icy world, and Enceladus, I believe, has a lot of ice on it. You're going to see things like this, I think. Maybe not. I honestly haven't looked at a picture of Europa in a while. But we should go there to look for life. And I can always turn down the opacity of the airbrush to give it a much more fainter greenish appearance if I want to do that kind of a thing. But I'm literally just slapping down color. It doesn't, at this point, it honestly doesn't matter all that much what you end up working with. You can always go back later on and change it. Whoopsie daisy. I just added some undo vertical guides. That really messes things up. What happened there is a funny little thing you often get to a lot with a stylus is if I draw from either the top or left-hand side of the screen, it thinks I want to add a horizontal or vertical guide layer, and that just messes up your workflow. So when you're near, like say, the left-hand side of the screen or the top, always draw towards the screen and not away from it to keep that from happening. Okay, that looks good enough for now. Just like I said, I'm literally just putting down some distant base colors. And if you think they're too distinct or not bright enough, this is stuff you can always change pretty easily. And I think what I'm probably going to do is actually change them a little bit. I'm going to use the smudge tool, get a nice big brush, and just kind of dab around. And it's going to make them definitely less. It's going to blend them together more. And you're not going to see lots of sharp points. It's going to be a more of just a gentle blending of color. All right, that looks good. That gives it a little bit of just color variation to it. And now we're going to do the same kind of thing for the other areas defined in the terrain face mask. So let's select the green area. Using the color select tool where the green would be. You notice you don't even have to make a layer visible to use the color select tool on it like I just did there. All right, but make sure when you do that, you go back to the base color layer you're working with. And let's choose this color. And this is where I can kind of work up here by the ridge line. I'm going to be able to make it very distinct. This is actually a ridge line here. This is one of the ways you can do it is with the color and the texture, by giving it a vastly different color than what the background has, or the area behind it has anyway. And your eyes will pick up on that nice sharp transition and interpret it as there's a difference between basically a difference of depth. And once again, I'm just choosing not random colors, but from a limited palette of colors of what I think would look good in this situation. And I'm kind of approximately emulating the flow of the terrain with them. Now I started with the green, I kind of have to keep going with it, so why not add some more? Because I can. I mean, I don't know. It's like, sure, let's add a little bit of blue and more blue in there. And if you think your colors are a little bit too bright, go ahead and get something that's a lot closer to the base color and just add and draw more of that on top of it, and it'll kind of dull everything down a little bit. It's very easy to go back and forth. If you think colors have gotten too bright or not bright enough, it's just literally go back and forth until you get an appearance of colors that you actually like. Alright, see how that looks. Select none. There we go. And there is a bit of a ridge line there. Not a huge one, but you can see that there is a bit of a ridge line. We'll have to bring that out with some light and shadow a little bit more later on. But that's going to be kind of part 2 of this whole thing. So, once again, we're doing this one more time. Terrain face mask layer. Select that. Color select tool. Choose the red area, which is pretty much everything else. And here we go again. And I am on the terrain face mask layer, which, see, that's what happens when I don't show the layer. I go ahead and start drawing on the wrong layer, and I'm going to mess things up really bad later on. You don't want to screw up that masking layer. Okay, there we go. Because if you do, it breaks as a masking layer. You can't, use it for what it's intended to be used for. I didn't actually blend the colors of the green thing together, did I? Oops, I'll do that in a minute. I need to go back and fix that, but yeah. Let's finish this section first, and then I'll go back and fix that. Because what I didn't do is I didn't blend all these colors in the middle kind of hill area together like I did in the background. I want to do that. It just makes it look a little bit better. It dulls the texture a little bit, and it doesn't make it quite as sharp. It looks more like just natural variations in color than literally lots of sharp pixels for some weird reason. And then green. Okay, let's blend all this together. So I'm using the smudge tool to blend it all together. Like I said, it gets rid of a lot of the sharp colors, or not sharp colors, sharp changes in color, sharp little dots. I made it really greenish up here in front, but whatever, that's details. Okay, let's go back to our terrain face mask layer, color select tool, select the green section, back to our base color layer. And now we want to use the blend tool to blend these colors together. There we go. Select none. Alright, so now we've got our 3 sections of colors done individually, and then I want to go ahead and I want to start merging them together a little bit. I am checking one thing quickly unrelated to what I'm doing because I like to watch what severe storms are up to. There's actually despite being December, nope, nothing exciting for us. Despite being December, there's actually a fairly large outbreak of severe weather across most of the country right now, including a number of tornado watches and 1 severe thunderstorm watch. So, if you like watching tornadoes, if you've ever been over to the TVN weather live stream where you can watch the storm chasers chase tornadoes live, it's pretty freaking cool. But don't do that right now. You're watching me, right? But basically there's a possible risk where I live here in Michigan of being severe weather, but right now we have no mesoscale discussion out, no watches. Mesoscale discussions are the precursor to the watches and those are the precursors to the warning system. But I'm getting way off topic because I like meteorology too. All right. Here's what we're going to do is blend these different sections together where they need to be blended at color-wise. This is very important. Where they need to be blended at is very important because obviously we went this whole painstaking process of this terrain face mask to keep these nice sharp ridge lines. So don't lose those. But for example, down here where there isn't supposed to be a sharp face mask, you can blend these areas together, just so you don't see any kind of a ridge line, because they are kind of eventually all going to merge into the same ground surface. And same thing right here. We can kind of do the same thing right here with this quote other frozen pond thing. Yeah, I keep calling it a frozen pond, which is really a bad name, but that's what I keep calling it. As long as I call it the same thing and you know what it is, you know that works, right? All right. Pretty simple, just blending it all together. So we still have the ridge line, we still have some clearly defined ridge lines, but then we also have everything blended together where it should be blended together. Good, 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 good. But now to define even more light and shadow, we need to start adding literally light and shadow to it. And we're going to do that pretty much how we've done all along, because how we've done all along actually works fairly well. All right, let's go and create a new layer on top of the terrain face mask, and let's call it terrain light and shadow. And we're going to take a gray color of value 50. And I'm going to fill the entire layer with that color because you know what? You know what we're doing here. If you watch the last 6 streams, I've pretty much done the same thing every stream. I'm going to now go up to the layer mode for this layer and change it to hard light. Of course, hard light layer is the way you can use a single layer to make things below it be both lighter and darker. If I draw a gray color that's a value greater than 50, it's going to make the layers below it be lighter. If I draw a gray color value less than 50, it's going to make the values or the colors, whatever, the layers below that be darker. So it's a way of adding both highlights and light and shadow. And of course, in this particular picture, our light source is actually a moon that's up to the upper right-hand corner and in front of Alendar here. So we've got to take that into consideration as we add lights and shadows into this picture. All right. Let me start thinking about this, because this is where things you got to really think a little bit about. You start throwing things down, otherwise it doesn't look quite right. So back here, we would kind of have this area back here would probably be in the light. You would have this area probably maybe a little bit in shadow. Let me bring up my moon landing picture again so you get an idea of what you're dealing with. It's a different color, different light angle though. Theirs is actually behind instead of in front. But you get the idea. There's going to be some very sharp lights and shadow things going on. Yeah, this will probably be, I don't know, it's kind of like, it's really, I think this will be dark right in here, and this is bright, and there's a very sharp boundary right here somewhere. And I think I'm gonna make this area be dark, and eventually there's gonna be another kind of fade to bright area here, because the flat ground is going to be relatively bright, and we're going to do the same kind of things. Let's see how that starts looking out. Okay, how we're going to do this is we're going to use the spray brush tool, and I am going to use a brush type of, let's try acrylic 1. This could be interesting. We want to choose a color that's very dark, so we're actually going to choose a value of 10, and that's about it. No hue, no saturation, pretty much a very dark, almost black color. And we're going to start by adding in the brighter areas. So on the airbrush tool here, right below its name, mode, we're going to want to choose that to addition. And as addition implies, what you're going to do is you're taking your current brush and adding it to the pixels that are already down. There's me throwing my stylus for some reason. Adding it to the colors that are already down. So addition is going to make the layer you're working on brighter. And since we are working on a hard light layer, that means by making that layer brighter, it's going to then basically make the layers below it be brighter wherever we make this layer brighter. Okay, first things first though, select the terrain face mask layer, color select. We only want to work on the blue mountain areas. And also you're going to notice, obviously the blue mountain area goes beyond where the actual terrain is. Before I said that wasn't a big deal. It's going to cause some funniness on the horizon right now, but we'll clean that later. We'll clean that up later, so don't worry about the fact it's going to look a little funny on the horizon. All right. So now I'm using the addition layer, and you notice how it's starting to make this thing be pretty bright. You can see it's looking brighter here compared to the other areas. That's good. And we're going to actually apply a little bit brighter area here, as if there was maybe a little bit of a elevation change back here, like that. We want to make sure the peak of the mountain's also bright. And you can see that little bit of artifact we got going in the background there. Like I said, that was the messiness in the horizon I was talking about. We'll clean that up later. Just don't pretend it's not there right now. Okay, that's looking good, looking good. And then I can go through the smaller brush and even make this area right up here be really bright if I wanted to. And the same kind of thing down here. I can add a few brighter areas with the brush. And just like how we did with the character, your brain's going to start seeing that as light and shadow, and your brain's going to start filling in the 3D texture and then using that to take cues as to what the actual texture and layout of the area should be. Now we're going to change the mode of the brush to subtract. Let's go back to a larger brush size, and we're going to start painting in the areas that are in shadow. And you can then take the smudge tool on the boundary here and just kind of do your best to blend it together a little bit. And there you go, you're starting to see a little bit of the different, you can start to see how there's some 3D terrain going on there. To be honest with you, when it comes to terrain, a lot of my pictures, it's honestly not that big of a deal. So if it doesn't, I don't spend near as much time on the terrain as I do the characters. And you'll notice that it's very common in a lot of artwork to do that. There's usually one or two objects, the main characters, who are really super detailedly drawing, and everything else is actually quick brush strokes. But the thing is, because you're focusing on the detailed guys, you don't even really pay a whole lot of attention to what's going on in the background. And you can do that here too. I'm essentially cheating a little bit, really. So here we go. Let's jump to the middle layer. So let's go back to a terrain face mask layer. We're going to select the green middle area, go up to terrain light and shadow. And once again, I am going to probably have a bright ridge line along the top here. But this area up here is kind of actually in the shadow. It's kind of sloping down, right? So let's add a darkness bit right here. because also there's this little ridge in front of it which would be casting some shadows too. And then I'm going to go back to addition with this tool, and then I'm going to start applying the addition up at the top here. And the fact that this is going to be a very bright ridge compared to what's behind it is also going to help to sell the effect that it is a separate terrain element than what you see behind it there. Like a few of the areas really bright, the rest are kind of like, whatever. Select none, see how that's looking. Yeah, so now you can definitely see there's a other bit of terrain piece going in there, and the lighting's close enough. Sometimes the light doesn't come out quite right with this thing, because technically I suppose, yeah, this should actually probably be dark up here. So let me make that dark, edit, undo, select none. It doesn't have to be as dark as the areas around it. But yes, this should probably be in the shadow. Maybe a little too intense there. So this area here can be bright. That area would be facing the light. Select none. Now you're starting to see how everything's kind of coming together. Your brain's going to be starting to fill in and imagine how the 3D terrain is kind of laid out. And same thing here. This ridge line, it's always tough. It's kind of forward and bright, so it would be, we're going to make this one bright, because the only reason it would really be in, yeah, it would be still in the shadow until it kind of leveled out a little bit around here. Okay, that's fine. So let's take, let's select our red area on the terrain face mask, going back to the light and shadow area. Let's get our airbrush out here. Nice and big, subtraction, and we're going to make it fairly dark. Except that area, that area is going to be a little bit brighter because that's actually in the light. Let me actually undo, no, that's fine. Select, grow 1 pixel. That way it gets rid of the, I always got to remember to grow the selections by 1 pixel, otherwise you end up with a little bit of a border there. You can kind of see at the top of our middle ridge is a bit of a border, and that's not really any good. You don't want that. Honestly, it probably doesn't matter for this picture, but yeah, that's why you grow by 1 or 2 pixels to get rid of that kind of a border. All right, let's go back to addition, and we're going to then add a little bit of bright light here, because this area would be kind of facing up against the this ridge line here, would be probably be in the light, and over here you can give this area some brightness to it to add the appearance that there's some ridges back here. And why not put something else right here, because I can, right? You can literally just slap down some light, bright and dark areas next to each other, and your brain's going to interpret it as a valley or a ridge, whatever it may be, depending on how they're oriented and based on how your brain's interpreting where the light's coming from. You know, it's like, what? We can actually probably even put like a little extra ridge line in here. Maybe he's kind of threw himself over the little thing he's hiding behind. Now he's kind of running down. That's gonna make the shadows a bit of a hell, but you know, details. All right, let's get the subtraction brush back out. add a little bit of, there we go, just so you can see there's something else going on there. And let's see what happens. Select none. So now you're seeing you've got your different ridge lines and things in there. That's pretty good. Kind of like what I was going for. I want to blend the areas together that are not ridge lines. So let's take the smudge tool again. Still working on the terrain light and shadow area, but I want to get rid of the acrylic brush, and we're just going to use a hardness 25 round brush for this. The acrylic brush doesn't work that great for smudging. It tends to get kind of strange effects. It's not really what you want to see. And there we go. A little bit more over here. I think I'm going to just go over some of these areas a little bit more to just kind of clean, see if I get a different look going. I'm just curious to see what it would look like. You can use the smudge tool to kind of fix these ridge lines a little bit, where if you didn't do the proper grow on the select command and you got the little one line there, you can kind of fix it carefully with the smudge tool. You can also use the smudge tool to get rid of some of that texturing look from using the acrylic brushes if you decide you don't want that. You can also use the smudge tool to add a little bit more shape definition, as if there's like material sliding down these things. All right, that's good enough for this picture. They're actually not big mountains. They're relatively small mountains, small chunks of ice relatively close to the camera. Of course, since this is a airless planet, you really wouldn't be able to tell anyway just how far these things are away. But let's fix this little terrain mess or horizon mess thing that's going on back there. How we're going to do that is pretty much, let's go back to our base color ice layer, select the area outside of where all the color is. And that's going to select pretty much all the areas where this terrain mess stuff is going on. And we're going to go back to our terrain light and shadow layer. We're going to take a value of 50. Go to our tools options, and actually before we do that, select the bucket fill tool. Go to our tools options, make sure we choose fill hole selection. Click there in the area we have selected, and it's going to go ahead and pretty much change all that horizon messiness back to a value of 50, and therefore have no impact on the colors below it, and it's going to look perfectly fine. All right, now we're getting somewhere. What we need to do is add a shadow to this thing. So, first of all, we need to place Alendar in the image where he's going to be. So how we're going to do that is we want to we want to, next to the layers that make up Alendar, next to where the little eyeball is that makes the layer visible or hidden, click next there. You can see a little chain appear. You want to select all the layers that are for your main character. So don't select the background, don't select any of the lighting, any of that kind of stuff. And then you're going to use the move tool here, which is the little cross with the 4 arrowed tips on the ends of the cross. You're going to click, actually you can go ahead and just make sure on the tool options, move the active layer, and you can kind of move Alendar. Okay, that's not what I wanted to do. Actually, on the tool options layer, make sure you have we did that right. Okay, you want to actually select one of the layers of Alendar. It doesn't matter which one. Now we go back to the tool options, move the active layer, and there you go. Now because those layers are all linked together, you can see everything's moving, all the light and the shadows and all the different pieces that make him up. So let's put them where I want to put them. Ideally, you want to put them where when the shadow goes down, it's mostly flat. It makes life easier that way. So we're going to have him there. That's good. Now before I do that, I want to actually go back to our light and shadow layer, and I want to work a bit on this frozen pond area. I forgot to go back and do that. So let's start with the smudge tool, and we're going to kind of define the boundaries of this frozen pond a little bit. I'm working, like I said, on the light and shadow layer right now. I'm just kind of pushing things back just so we can kind of define the edges of this layer. Alright, that's looking pretty good. It's just kind of cleaning up those edges a little bit. And now, just like we did before, but on a little bit of a smaller scale, we're going to add a little bit of a lip around this frozen pool to give the effect that it's inset a little bit. And how we're going to do that is any area that's facing the light, you're going to go ahead and make it a little bit brighter. Any area that you can see that's away from it, you're going to make it a little bit darker. So we're going to work with a really small airbrush. Let's go down to a size of about 27. And over here along this edge, this area is away from the light, so it's in the shadow. Using the subtraction tool, let's choose a dark color, basically around a value 10, so we're almost pure black. And we're just gonna run, oh, that's not what I want. Undo, undo, airbrush. I want to choose one of the acrylic brushes. Let's do acrylic 2. And I'm actually gonna even do a value of like 5. And I'm running along where the lip of this frozen pool would be. Some areas, if I make, are going to be a little bit thicker. Some areas are going to be a little bit thinner. But you can see there, you already can just see, just from that little bit of effect, there's some lip there to give the idea that that pool's inset a little bit compared to the rest of the terrain around it. Now we're going to get to the point where, okay, so right around here is going to be where it switches to being in the light. This is still kind of in the dark. It isn't, so I'm not going to go over it as much, but I'm still going to use the subtract tool at this point just to give it a little bit of a darker appearance. Okay, that's looking good. Now these faces are going to start facing the sunlight or the moonlight, whatever the source of this image is. So let's switch to addition, keep the same dark color, and keep drawing the line around the edge of this little frozen pool, but now it's going to start being a little bit brighter. Okay, we're going to make this a little bit easier. Change the value of the color up to about 11 so it goes a little bit quicker. And same thing. And the end is you're going to have pretty much the appearance that this pool is inset a little bit because of how your brain interprets light and shadow and how it turns that into elevation. And just like that, you've got a pool that's inset a little bit. All right, shadows, 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 shadows. Or character shadow anyway, I mean. Character shadows and reflections can be very tricky. They seem like in your brain they're going to be easy, but they often aren't, and you just do the best you can. At least that's the approach I tend to take. So here's what I am going to do. Remember that mask layer I created last time, but actually I'm going to pretend like that doesn't exist, just so that way I can show you how to do it again. Okay, let's hide everything that's not Alendar. So that's going to be our, get rid of our 3 background layers, so we just have Alendar again. Select all, edit, copy visible, go edit, paste, layer, to new layer, and what we just did is create a new layer that's an exact copy of the final Alendar. Excuse me. We're going to right click on that layer in the layer dialog, choose edit layer attributes, and I'm going to call it the shadow. Here we'll call it Alendar shadow. And we want to make it pitch black. So colors and choose threshold. Now threshold, we used this last time to create the mask, but we're going to do the opposite here. Threshold basically is saying at a value, if a pixel has this value, if it's greater than this value, make it pure white. If it's less than this value, make it pure black. So I'm going to take this little slider on the threshold thing that pops up and crank it all the way up to 255. So pretty much when I crank all the way up to 255, what I am saying is make every pixel be pure black. Hit OK. Because the shadow is going to initially start off being pure black, and we're going to adjust it from there. So we can bring our terrain back on. So let's bring our terrain lighting layer on, terrain base color, and then our sky. And we need to start moving this shadow to approximately the position that he is in. All right, let's see if I can do this. Okay, with the shadow layer selected, let's take a box and draw all the way around him. And we're going to start by using the perspective tool. Yes, the perspective tool. It is the one that kind of looks like a trapezoid with two little white things in the corner. It's up there next to rotation, scale, shear, and then perspective. We're going to click on that and then click somewhere inside the artwork, and you're going to get this grid that comes up. I'm going to drag my perspective box over here. Let me see if that, I want to make sure that grid comes up for you on the stream here. Okay, I got to select it. Click, yeah, good, okay. The grid's there. Sorry about that. Now this grid is literally going to change kind of literally the perspective and the angle and the appearance of this layer. And it's a lot of just fiddling it around with it until you kind of get the shape and angle you would imagine you would with his shadow. So kind of something like we're getting there. Try that. And that's probably, if it's, you know, we'll make it a little bit longer of a shadow, but we're getting there, you know. That's the important part. We're getting there to where about where we want it to be. We'll do something like that. Transform. Yeah, let's go with that. Layer, anchor layer. We would want to, if you want to be particular, you notice the shadow starting to lay across the hill back there. We would probably want to take that into account. Let me see if I can figure out how to do that. That's probably just doing a little bit of a different perspective on the thing, because that's all shadow really would do if it cast on the hill behind it, is have its angle adjusted a little bit right here. Something kind of like that. And I'm gonna just, so that's good. Layer, go layer, anchor layer. So now shadow curves up a little bit, and then I can just take a black paintbrush and then just kind of fill in using, we can use like the hardness 75 brush, and we'll just fill in the missing pieces. And you're going to end up making this shadow a little bit softer, even though that probably wouldn't happen on the moon, would it? Moon landing, yeah, moon landing shadows are pretty sharp, of course, because once again, there's no atmosphere. But I'll still probably just add a little bit of fuzziness to hide the fact that it's kind of a not super well done shadow. I'm cheating again. There's a lot of cheating in digital art, trust me, a lot of cheating in this kind of thing. Because the people who are really awesome don't need to cheat. Even then, I bet they probably do anyway. Okay, so that's kind of like where the shadow would be. Now let's just move our shadow layer down below Alendar so it's behind him. And yeah, that'll work for now. Because we'll assume we got a very high up light source coming down. So when you have a very high up light source, you get shadows that are shorter than the people who are there. Sure, I like that. I'm happy with that. And just add a tiny bit of fuzziness. Just a tiny bit, even though, like I said, a vacuum planet probably wouldn't have it. Whatever works. Just go to Filters, Blur, Gaussian Blur, to the shadow layer, and we can probably do a 15 pixel blur on horizontal and vertical. Hit go. And just a little bit. And if you want to, you can turn the opacity layer down on the shadow. But like I said, without air to bend the light around the shadow, you're probably going to get a pretty harsh shadow anyway. Oh boy, now the last step. I'm going to sit back here and think about this one a little bit. In fact, I am going to go ahead and put up my little commercial break. We'll be back in a few minutes, let me get some more water. And I think about our last step, is which to try to really make this image look like it's, quote, being lit by moonlight and not sunlight. So I will be back in just a few minutes for the next part. Welcome back, everyone, to the second part of the live Caledagia stream here, where it's really going to be me just kind of screwing around, because I'm kind of diving into territory I'm not too familiar with. So we will see how things go. And as I mentioned, as there's a bit of an outbreak of severe weather today, there are a lot. This is a really serious tornado situation. There have been 5 tornado warnings in about the last 16, 17 minutes. Sorry. My Twitter feed here is tornado warning, tornado warning, tornado warning, George Washington Triceratops, tornado warning, tornado warning, tornado warning. I don't know why George Washington is on Triceratops, but he is. But seriously though, if you actually live in Minnesota's cool. If you live in Tennessee, Mississippi, Ohio, be paying very close attention to the weather right now. There are a lot of tornado warnings going out. I'll be curious to see what the totals for tomorrow are, but there's my Twitter feed I follow the National Weather Service account, which is tornado warnings, and literally the last 2 hours on my Twitter feed is this warning after warning after warning, and then George Washington on Triceratops. All right. So here is what I'm going to try to do. And this is why I'm getting into areas I'm not terribly familiar with. I'm going to try to make it look more like this is a nighttime image, because in the story this occurs during nighttime. So I'm going to kind of cheat and do Hollywood nighttime. Because frankly, nighttime it would be just really dark and dreary anyway. Hollywood nighttime though tends to have very high contrast, the things that matter. So that's what I'm going to try and do here. So let's start with the terrain and let me see what happens. Like I said, I'm literally getting into experimental territory here. So if you want some good tutorials, this may not be the best for you, but if you want to see what happens when you start screwing around with stuff, this could be a good example. First, I'm going to go ahead and do File, Save a Copy, because if I really screw it up, then it's not that big a deal. All right, let's save off a copy of the artwork. Uh-oh, what did I just do? Oh, I hit the light and shadow thing. There we go. Okay. So with terrain, light, and shadow, let's go to Colors and choose Levels. Now, Levels allows you to basically adjust contrast, but also allows you to say what color is white and what color is dark. So first of all, you're going to see two slider things going on. You have input levels and output levels. Input levels lets you define what value starts at black and what value starts at white. And I'm going to drag those two little arrows closer together, and what you're going to get is a much steeper contrast. And the middle arrow kind of defines where the middle is, and you can really play around with this to get different effects. Ooh, I actually kind of like that. So you're getting much more bright areas, and you're getting a lot dark areas. That's very Hollywood nighttime-ish effect, and I'm really liking that. So let's go ahead and hit OK, and we'll keep that. And the next thing I want to do is, let me see, this is pure white back here, right? Let me choose sample merged. That is pure white. I don't want that to be pure white. So let me go back to the colors, levels, and I'm going to now play around with the bottom slider. The bottom slider is output levels. This lets you define what you have as white. Basically, what you have defined as the color white, what actually is white. So I'm going to turn this down, and it's going to make white be more of a grayish color. The idea is I don't want full bright whites just quite yet. So we'll do something like that. That's good. And I'm going to apply a similar effect to Alendar. The problem is, with Alendar, he has some of the light and shadow is on a separate layer, and some of it's already baked into the other layers. So what I'm going to do is, let's hide our background here. I am going to now right-click on Shield Color up here and merge visible layers. We're going to merge Alendar together. So Alendar is now down, oh, not the shadow, hold on, undo that. I don't want to put his shadow in the same thing. So hide the shadow as well. Then go back to Shield Color, right-click, choose Merge Visible Layers. We're going to make Alendar be a single layer. Let's rename it to Alendar. And now let me bring back in our light and shadow stuff going on here. And we can do the same thing to Alendar. Even though he is a multicolored layer, we can do the exact same kind of thing. Let's go to Colors, Levels, and we're going to kind of push Alendar into a much more contrasting color. I start really getting crazy here. Like I said, this is all experimental, what I'm playing around with. It's not something I normally do. So I'm just having some fun here and seeing what happens. Let's see, 6 Twitter messages to start the segment. And we've got 2 new tornado warnings in 6 minutes. I heard about, about 6 minutes we got 2 more tornado warnings going out. So yeah, seriously, this is a major outbreak today. That's fine. Is it okay? Let's bring our shadow back in, Alendar's shadow back into the whole thing. And the next thing I want to do is now give it more of a moonlight, quote, moonlight appearance. I want to make it a bit of a brightish yellow appearance instead of being bright white, just because I think that would look cool. Because for some reason, whatever moon Kalen 5 has, it emanates more of a bright yellow light. So how we're going to do this, we're going to do this in 2 steps. Let's go to our terrain light and shadow layer, and we're going to duplicate that. And I'm going to change it from hard light to normal, so we can see what it looks like. Okay, so we have our normal layer here for the light and shadow. And I'm going to go ahead and hide that, and we're going to create a new layer called Moonlight. Moonlight terrain. Now, for this, I am going to choose a dark yellow color that has a lot of yellow saturation to it, but is relatively dark. That'll work. So I'm choosing a hue of 54, a saturation of 100, and a value of 14, which is going to give it a highly saturated but dark yellow color. And we're going to just bucket fill the entire thing with this highly saturated dark yellow color. Okay, so let's bring back in that copy of the terrain light and shadow we made. We're going to go select all, hit edit, copy, hide it. Let's go back to our moonlight terrain layer. We're going to add a layer mask. Now a layer mask, as when that pops up, just choose white full opacity for now. A layer mask is a way of saying on a pixel per pixel basis just how transparent a given pixel is. If the layer mask, basically the pixel in the layer mask is all white, then the corresponding pixel in the layer is going to be full opacity. If the pixel in the layer mask is black, it's going to be full transparency, and obviously depending on the value of white to black, it's going to be that in between. So you're going to notice when you add the layer mask, you're going to see a white square appear next to the little kind of image of the moonlight terrain layer. And so make sure you click on that white square so that we're working now with a layer mask, and we're going to go ahead and choose edit paste, and this is going to paste the and then layer anchor layer. Now this is going to paste the moonlight terrain layer onto the layer mask of this. Essentially, you're going to see the ugly yellow color in any of the areas that were really bright. And what we're going to do is now go back and select the ugly yellow color here, the moonlight terrain layer, and for mode, change mode from normal to addition. And we're going to go back to being really bright, but you're going to notice the bright areas now have a bit of a yellowish tint to them. And you can kind of, let's see, how do we want to do this? And if we want to make it even more of a yellowish tint, how do I want to do this? I'm going to, it's probably actually about as yellow as I can make it, right? I'm just curious. I'm going to play around with something and see what happens. What if I do that? What does it do? That just makes the other areas darker, so I'm going to do that. So all we can really do is add in the saturation. We could probably do that, right? We could do, that's what's more saturation, but that's like no value. I don't know, what happens if I do that? I'm curious. I'm going to try hue of 54, saturation of 100, value of 0. That's still just pure black, yeah. So we need to undo that. We need to do something else. But yeah, I don't know. It depends how yellowish you want it, but you're going to notice there's going to be a little bit of a yellowish hue now to the bright areas of this scene, which if that's what I'm trying to go for. So I kind of like that. I kind of would like it a little bit more yellowish. But it is a bit of a tricky balancing act. Like, let's see here. What I can do is, let me go back to this color. We could add a little bit more value of a brighter yellow. So I'm doing hue 54, saturation 100, value 29, and then we could probably turn down the opacity of the layer. Or we could go back to our layer mask here, do color levels, and kind of change that. Ah, there we go. That's what I can kind of go with. Yeah, okay. Okay, that's kind of what I could do too. Okay, so I could start with a brighter yellow. For example, what I just did there is I filled in the moonlight terrain layer with a hue 54, saturation 100, value 2429 layer. Then I selected the layer mask, and using the levels dialog, which unfortunately you can't see because of how I'm recording this thing, I can change the input levels, and I can make some of the bright areas be even more yellow, well, reducing the effect of that layer has in the dark areas, giving it more of even a brighterish yellow areas. I like that. That's kind of what I'm going for. So now we're going to want to do the same thing with Alendar. So let's go to Alendar here. We want to turn him essentially into a brightness mask. So we want to duplicate him. We want to go colors, desaturate, and we want to choose desaturate based on lumosity, right? Yes, lumosity. And it's going to turn him into pretty much a black and white version of himself. And this is going to become our layer mask for applying this whole yellow lighting thing to him. So let's go ahead and we can hide this copy of Alendar. We can create a new layer above Alendar, and let's call it Moonlight Alendar. And let's fill it with the same yellow color I was working with just a bit ago, which is hue 54, saturation 100, value 29. And we're just going to cover up the entire image with this ugly yellow color, which is fine. Don't have to worry about that just quite yet. Let's bring our Alendar copy up here. We can go select all, edit copy, hide it, go back to our Moonlight Alendar layer, right click on it, add a layer mask, white full opacity. Actually, no, we want to make sure with our layer mask, that's fine, white doesn't really matter. Edit, paste, it does matter, doesn't it? I know why. Okay, hold on. I need to go back a few steps here. We can leave that there. See, the thing about our Alendar layer, what has got screwed up there is, you notice his layer position is not the same, is not lined up with the actual image. You can see the layer boundary in a funny spot here, which is going to make it difficult to copy and paste as a layer mask. So let's go to layer to image size of the Alendar layer. Now we've got it that lined up. Same thing with the copy we made here. We can go layer to image size. Now it's lined up with the image. See? Now select all, edit copy the Alendar copy layer, which is going to become our layer mask. Go back down. Let's show the Moonlight Alendar layer. Hide his copy. Click on the layer mask icon right there and go edit paste. And we're getting there. Hold on. Edit, undo that paste. One more step ahead of me. You really should use a full black fill for this guy. So before we paste it in, fill the layer mask with full black, and then let's go edit paste. Nothing happened. Edit paste. Okay. Something's not okay. Hold on here. That's not working quite right. Okay, Alendar copy again. Let's show that. Select all. Edit copy, please. Hide that. Moonlight Alendar layer mask. Edit paste. There we go. Now we got kind of what we're going for there. Layer, anchor, layer. Now with the layer mask of Moonlight Alendar selected, we can bring up colors, levels, and we can adjust the input levels to make it do what we wanted to do earlier, where we kind of only made the brightest areas. Ooh, that's looking like ugly. That is ugly, ugly, ugly. Oh, I know why. Ha! Before we do that, we got to make sure the layer mode of this layer is set to addition. There we go. Now that we have the layer mode set to addition, let's go colors, levels, and now we can start kind of tweaking how we want this to look, where you can decide just how bright the various things are and play around with the different values. Try to give it a little bit more of a yellowish hue to some of the brighter areas. Okay. Sure, why not? We'll go with that. Okay. And there we go. It's kind of a nighttime-ish looking scene. I don't know, like I said, this is just me experimenting around. But I'm happy with how it turned out. It'll work good for the one little scene that one artwork piece that he's going to show up in. So with that, I can finally call this tutorial series done. Thank you for watching it. In the future, I'll probably be doing some more artwork like this. Maybe not character artwork. Got some other things lined up. I'm going to be doing probably some planetary artwork for creating maps and like fantasy campaigns, as well as sci-fi planets. I need a lot of those for Caledagia. Blender work's going to be lined up here to show you how to do some 3D modeling. I think next, though, I am going to be working with some resin casting tutorials here. And maybe if I want to get adventurous, maybe even pewter casting tutorials. But to be honest with you, that requires me running somehow getting internet out to my parents' shed, because playing with a blowtorch in my apartment is not going to be a good idea. But definitely some resin casting stuff, probably in the not too distant future here. Oh, I don't know. I got some other ideas I want to play with, see if I can make them work good, and if I can, I'll share them here on this Twitch stream. So once again, I'm Jason, the creator of the Caledagia universe. For more information on Legends of Caledagia, which is the space combat miniatures game, you can head over to the website at caledagia.com. It's right there on the screen on the right-hand side banner. And if you're interested, you can also check out Caledagia Fleet Commander, which is the tabletop game of Planetary Siege. It's basically an asymmetrical war game where the Surikari are invading, Irgul are defending. So with that, once again, have a Merry Christmas. Thanks for watching. I gotta go finish the rest of my Christmas shopping. Fortunately, I'm not in one of the horrific tornado-warned areas right now, but like I said, if you are, keep an eye on the weather. If you're in the kind of the Ohio, Mississippi, Tennessee, Kentucky area, there's been a lot of tornado warnings. So, all right, have a good night, and thank you for watching.